So item 22, this agenda item is to consider adopting proposed amendments to regulations to extend the temporary red abalone recreational fishery closure in Northern California until April 1st, 2036, extending the sunset date by 10 years. There was a notice hearing in August and discussion in October in advance of today's adoption hearing. There are some comments in your meeting materials, and I want to call your attention to a comment received in the supplemental meeting materials, where the commenter has requested that the commission consider scheduling annual updates to learn to keep abreast of what the status is of the stock of the abalone population and its ecosystem, and requesting that you formalize that. I do want to recall that the direction that you as a commission gave at the notice hearing in August was that you would like to see a 5-year status review report, so a midway point during the 10-year extended temporary closure, at which time you were responding to department input that would be a good time frame for being able to collect sufficient data and information about the population to be able to provide a meaningful update. Should you wish to reconsider that, this is an opportunity for that as well. Dr. Craig Schumann is available with any questions and may have additional comments to make. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Susan. And just to clarify, I want to make sure I understand. I remember we asked for a 5-year touch point status report to make sure that we are thinking about this again with plenty of time to sort of reach that 10-year mark. Should we move this forward? If the department has information changes, updates before that, obviously they can bring those to us. And then as a commission, if we were to want to ask for an update in light of like new events, new something, we can do that too. And I guess I'm wanting to put that out there because we are not bound to waiting 5 years in either direction. Is that right?
Yes, thank you for making that point.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. We can go to public comment unless folks up here have additional questions. I don't know if you wanted to speak to that sort of question further, Dr. Seaman.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Yes, of course. We can bring new information at any time. And I think one of the concerns we heard or we have been hearing is that we're going to walk away from this resource. And I can just assure the commission, stakeholders and tribes that we are certainly not going to do that. We understand the magnitude of what is being considered today. This is not a package that we brought lightly to you. We've talked about this at length, and if there's questions, I can talk about the path the commission took actually to get to this point. It was a string of regulatory actions to reduce take over a period of almost 10 years before that first closure. So, this is just really unfortunate circumstances, and we're going to do everything we can to get this fishery back.
Thanks so much for those comments. Couldn't agree more. This is not easy to have to consider. I want to hear what members of the public have to say after Susan.
Thank you, President Zavaleta. I inadvertently used language that's attributable to CISA when I referred to a status review report. So what I intended to refer to was an update on the condition of the population and the ecosystem and any information that's available. Thank you for letting me clarify.
Of course. How many people do we have who would like to make comment on this item?
We have 10.
10, okay. This is a really important one, and so we'll go 2 minutes each as we typically do at the adoption hearing, and we'll start with folks in the room.
Will Jacinta Messier and Paul Wheatland please approach the podium?
Good morning again, Joseph Missy with Pescanta Tribe. Similar to what I said yesterday about terrestrial resources, when it comes to marine resources, abalone is one of a very important species for all tribes, not just on the coast, but also in the interior. We're talking about, 7,000 years of exchange between the coast and the Mississippi River. This is one of our more, important species. I want to congratulate, the use of the term sunset. I think, we have further discussion about seasonality, but I think our question was similar to what was said today about, having, more information during that 10-year period. Thank you.
Commissioners Paul Wheatland, how deceitful, how conniving. This is your best effort, huh? 32. You could have just been honest in the beginning and said, no, we're not going to allow you to do it again. We want our abalone aquaculturists to have a better chance. Well, they've had 30 years and it's still a failure. Look at fish farming in California. They started in 1870. 1870, the same time the commission came on board. You know why? One of the reasons was the fish farmers. And what do we have to point to it? Failure, failure, failure. Not one successful fish farm ever, because they're all failures. It's a scam. All you're doing is perpetuating a fraud in the whole way that the millions of dollars that you spent on study. We have learned a lot, and we're not going to allow you to ever fish again, because that's what we learned because of our aquaculture schemes that we have going on. It is so foul. It's deceitful. It's sinister. Evil. Totally evil. It's the people's resource. And the fact that you're not busting the hardcore poachers, what does that show you? Really. Complete hypocrisy. It's complete hypocrisy. I say again, let's talk about that SEAL team mission over there in North Korea, where the commercial divers, North Koreans, were diving at night. And there you go, the SEAL team thought they were compromised, didn't even know they were there. But they were training diving at night. Why would they do that? To come to California like they've done in the past. And the SEAL team thought, why would they be diving at night? Commercial shellfish harvesters that were assassinated by the SEAL team and their boat sunk, only because they were training to come here to poach abalones. Now, the other thing is, my whole life depended on abalones, my whole upbringing. That's how I lived. You've destroyed California, you and your buddy, Gavin.
Dakota Perez, go ahead, please.
Hello again, Dakota Perez, your tribe member, Pomo descendant. And this is just my personal comment. This isn't, and when I do speak, I'm not speaking for the tribe that I work for. I'm just speaking personally. I am a certified advanced open water scuba diver and a free diver. I've been diving on the coast for a good while now. And I've been down there, I've seen the abalone, and it's not where it should be. There's not enough food for them in the ecosystem. And these food are, culturally significant culturally significant resources for tribes, and they have been for thousands of years. And what I want people to remember, because there's a lot of people who dove in, or they dove for abalone their whole life, and really upset about the closure or potential closure for another 10 years. I support the closure for another 10 years, and I would like to see more pressure on poachers, and I'd like to see their faces posted when they are caught, rather than just seeing that a poacher was caught, because I'd like to see more information on how the public can try to do anything to prevent these major poachers. But yeah, this is a culturally significant resource. I support the closure another 10 years, and it is unfortunate to the people who dove their whole life for these abalone. But something to remember is some of these people who did that their whole life, there are tribal kids who've never even tasted abalone in their life, and they won't have the chance to for a long time. But hopefully this 10 year is past, and a 5-year review to see how things are going would be great to see. And I would like to be included in tribal committee meetings just to kind of keep the tribes around here updated with what's going on. Thank you.
Keith Rootsart, go ahead, please.
Keith Rootsart, founder of the Giant Kelp Restoration Project in Monterey. Reading the new rules for 29.15 abalone, I felt confident that people would not get it. People don't really read the regulations, but rely on other fishers and social media to know the fishing rules. And in a long list of rules, people don't read the first line. Monday, I did a little study to test my hypothesis. I posted on the 10.4K member Abalone Divers Facebook group the following. Arguments to keep the abalone fishery aside. The regulations are proposed to be changed at the Fish and Game Commission meeting today to close the abalone fishery for 10 years. The attorneys at CDFW proposed to change the 29.15 rules so that the first two subsections prohibit the take of abalone in California until April 1st, 2036. The subsequent sections continue for another 2 pages and 687 words that have no effect because they are preempted. Do you think sections C to K should be deleted? There were 17 comments and 0 commenters responded to the question to remove or keep the superseded language. On the CDFW website, only subsections A and B are shown. Keeping superfluous legacy language in the booklet appeases nobody and only causes confusion, and confusion causes problems for LED to protect our shared resource. As a stakeholder in a healthy ocean, we recommend deleting 29.15 sections B to K. Thank you.
Casper Kazazian.
Oh, hey, yeah, this is Casper Kazazian with California Surf Fishing. I don't have too much to say. I'm going to keep it short, but I support the extension of the closure that you guys are discussing, and hopefully it opens up again in the future after you get data showing that it's recovered, hopefully, you know. Thank you, guys.
Zoe Collins.
Good morning, President Zavaleta and honorable commissioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment today. My name is Zoe Collins and I'm representing Hill Bay, an environmental nonprofit advocating for the coastal waters and watersheds of Greater Los Angeles. We'd just like to offer our support for extending the sunset date by 10 years. The proposed action uses foresight in preventing irreversible loss of cultural keystone species currently listed as critically endangered on the IUCN Red List. And as a temperature-dependent species, there's a concern regarding its recovery in light of a warming ocean. So we recommend taking a precautionary approach with this species recovery plan and continuing to assess and support the best available science on this topic. Thank you so much.
Anupa Asokan, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you. This is Anupa Asokan with Fish On. You've heard from us and our community pretty consistently over the last year in support of the staff recommendation to extend the closure for the next 10 years, with our added caveat that we believe tribal take should be considered before any general recreational allowances, and that's if and when the population has recovered enough to support sustainable harvest. There are 2 other points I've heard consistently through the other hearings on this topic that I'd like to respond to. One is for a shorter closure. At the discussion hearing, I reminded you that 10 years was already a compromise from a full moratorium initially recommended to the MRC. And as just discussed, and as we've seen with other issues, the department's monitoring is ongoing, and we're confident that if the science supports it, this can come back in front of the commission sooner. I don't see the need to belabor the issue. Second, I'll offer the reminder that there is no fishery and there will never be a fishery, period, if there are no abalone. As divers, we can learn again and we can adapt if the population is stable enough to support our harvest. The lack of opportunity now is less of a concern to us than a potential future without this species. Thank you for your time.
Lucas Gomez Gallo.
Yeah. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Lucas Gallo. I'm a graduate student in the Marine Biodiversity and Conservation Program at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Before I begin, I just want to offer my condolences on the passing of Josh and to acknowledge his longstanding commitment to the abalone recovery. I'm here today to speak in support of extending the Abalone closure and to highlight ecological thresholds that still have not been met for a sustainable fishery. Over the past decade, the collapse of Northern California's kelp forest has become one of the clearest examples of how climate-driven ecosystem shifts can unfold faster than our traditional management tools. Long-term monitoring from California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Reef Check, and other partners showed that the 2014 to 2016 marine heat wave resulted in over a 90% loss of bulk kelp canopy across hundreds of kilometers of the Northern California coastline. Following the heat wave and the outbreak of sea star wasting syndrome, purple urchin populations expanded dramatically, with documented densities in the tens to hundreds per square meter in many areas, which are levels associated with persistent kelp loss and under which kelp forests struggle to recover. I also wanted to note that the sunflower sea star, the main predator of urchins, has declined by over 90% across its range, and now it's critically endangered. So, given these conditions, I think reopening the fishery now would put pressure on the population that is still recovering from a major ecosystem shift. I want to acknowledge the cultural significance of this fishery. Those connections matter. But reopening before the habitat has rebounded risks setting recovery back by decades and potentially losing a resource that future generations might never see. I think a fishery with such cultural significance deserves to reopen only when the ecosystem can support it for generations and not just a single season. The science is clear that we are not there yet. So thank you for your time and stewardship.
Chris Voss.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Chris Voss, a commercial fisherman in Santa Barbara. I've been working on this issue for many, many years. And I'd like to acknowledge the incredibly selfless and generous contribution that Josh Russo made to the RAC, the Recreational Abalone Advisory Committee, and the development of an FMP for that recreational fishery on the North Coast. I believe that we should be thinking now about a smart way to reopen this fishery with a goal of doing it in an incremental way that doesn't inhibit the recovery of the stock, but also adds the necessary information that we need to manage the stock successfully long-term into the future. That's this idea of a de minimis fishery, something that can give us information about the stock, but also gives fishers an opportunity to engage with the resource in a meaningful way that's designed to gather information. And I think that is a constructive way to think about how re-engaging with this resource on a very limited way that then can ultimately lead, hopefully, to a long-term sustainable fishery as long as the environment cooperates. So I wish that was more regularly discussed. I believe a 10-year moratorium is way too long. I think I'm grateful for Dr. Schumann's comments about the department's commitment to reporting to the commission about the status of this resource. I just wish that it was cauterized in some way. There was some recognition that we need to look at this at 5 years. So thank you for your time.
Jack Likens, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jack Likens. I'm an ex-abalone fisherman. Just first of all, I'd like to reiterate what Dr. Schumann Craig said about Josh Rousseau. He was a great friend and a leader in the fishing community. As far as the abalone closure is concerned, I understand why the commission wants to extend the closure for 10 years. And I understand that to change that one way or another is an extensive bureaucratic process, and we don't need to go through that unnecessarily. Having said that, I would like to ask that the closure motion include a provision for the department to update the status of the resource at least annually. 5 years is a long time. And as you probably well know, there has been no abalone data collection by the department for the last 2 years. So we've got some catching up to do to better understand the status of the fishery. Also, as you know, the department has committed to an abalone restoration plan, which includes one of the major components, gathering and summarizing outside entities' data collection and use it in the management. There are a lot of outside entities, Reef Check, Peace Corps, Marine, academic institutions, NGOs, and tribal data that has not been really coordinated and brought together to use for abalone management. Lastly, I'd like to say that there's a big component in the data that we're missing, and that is the intertidal area, which is very important for us to look at because we all know that's where the abalone are currently, and in Humboldt and Del Norte counties for which there's no department data. Thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration.
That concludes our speakers on this item.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for those comments. I have a number of comments and a couple of questions, but I'd like to go first to my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Sklar?
Yeah, I think we've discussed this extensively, all of the topics, and I think that we come to the MRC's come to the conclusion, I've come to the conclusion that this is the right package, and I'm not going to repeat things I've said probably 20 times over the last year or two, but it's on the record, and I support moving forward with this.
Thanks. Commissioners, Vice President Hustler, sorry. Woo. Vice President Murray.
Yeah. Just want to appreciate all the work that's been done and all the comments from folks. We have had a lot of conversations about things like whether we have an appetite for a de minimis fishery, whether we can support a de minimis fishery. And the resources that we put into those conversations about things like a de minimis fishery, or the resources that go into having to create a new regulatory package every time we re-extend the sunset date every 5 years, there's substantial. So we've had a dedicated conversation about, you know, our collective risk tolerance for reopening this fishery. And we came to the conclusion, I think, among us, we don't really have very much tolerance for risk right now with the information we have. So we agreed to focus on restoration of abalone and getting more information. So I just want to reflect on a couple of specific comments. I agree, any future reopening we do have really needs to first consider tribal take, honoring that rich cultural tradition since time immemorial. And I also want to reflect on Jack's request, you know, if we are going all in on, you know, a restoration and information gathering, I'm totally comfortable saying that, you know, as a part of the motion, that we want to be identifying other data sources as well. Of course, we want the department to be working with NGOs, tribes, academic institutions, federal agencies, anyone who has knowledge to share on abalone, which is so iconic and important to California. I think we want to have that information. So I would love to, of course, prioritize that as well. But for me, I think it is important to remember that the original recommendation from the department was a moratorium. We scaled that back already to 10 years. So for me, that is the right time horizon for taking this action, as difficult as it is, knowing that we can have these check-in points along the way, and we'll want to.
Thanks, Vice President Murray, for those comments. Okay, I have a couple of things I want to add, but I want to start by saying that I really agree with everything that you just laid out. And I also want to say that it sits heavy with me that the collapse of this fishery has destroyed livelihoods. That is in the room. And to recover that fishery, we have to have abalone, and that should be our focus. And I am really confident of the energy and resources that are going towards that. And I agree. I think there's a lot of opportunity to gather knowledge, to not only sort of gather new data, but then sort of like look at it and discuss it with folks and sort of share what we're learning. at regular intervals. So I agree. I think check-ins are really appropriate. That's, in the form of reports. And then the last thing I just want to ask about is that there are a couple of comments about poaching, and Mike reminded me that there was a report back actually from Chief Arnold about a poaching an action to address poaching. But I wondered if Eric, you could give us a little bit more just overall understanding of what actions LED has taken and the department's taking actively to address poaching in this fishery.
Sure, absolutely. I can tell you that the 50 officers that are in Marine Enforcement Division, abalone poaching is a major priority. Anytime we see someone diving in the water or people that are walking along the intertidal zone at low tides, we set up details around these activities. Our officers are dedicated to watching out for this activity. The chief has made it very clear that serious abalone poachers will be taken to jail whenever possible. When we seize abalone from a case, every effort is made to reattach those animals to the rocks. So it's a big priority. It will remain a priority for our officers, and it's something that we're always on the lookout for.
Thanks so much. Commissioner Hustler-Carmison.
I just want to share that and kind of pinging off what Samantha just said about the knowledge. There's several tribes really working on projects within their areas in Northern California to study the problem, the kelp depletion, the wasting disease. And I'm happy to report that in numerous areas there is prolific restoration happening. So I want to bring encouragement, because I have a team where I work and I'm seeing underwater videos of life increasing, not decreasing. But I know that's not the norm everywhere. But where there's very focused effort, I think it's positive. And so I would really encourage tribal marine departments to get clearance to share information with the department. I think that's really important. And to do their stewardship and to continue to advocate for subsistence harvest. I think it's really important. I know we're working on it.
Yeah, thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, we do have a motion.
So I'll move that the commission adopts the proposed amendments to section 29.15 related to the recreational abalone fishery.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Sklar and a second by Vice President Murray. And we can do roll call, please.
Commissioner Sklar,
Aye.
Vice President Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Hostler-Carmison,
Aye.
President Zavaleta.
Aye. And so the motion passes unanimously.
And if I might,
Please.
I think the guidance on the spirit of collaboration moving forward on knowledge sharing and information sharing, it's not in the motion formally, but it's captured here in the record, and I see Craig nodding that he hears it and understands it. Wonderful. Thank you.